I've been a little busy on the political during this political scene, and full disclosure, I have been hired by Marc Butler to do television and radio commercials this political season, and Marc Butler is on the radio with us right now. Good morning, Marc.
Hey, good morning, Bill. Very interesting show this morning.
It's been a doozy.
Very. Before we get going, I have to take care of the important stuff. The girls from the Rite Aid in Herkimer want to say hello. They've got a little fan club down there. Apparently, they think you're some kind of genius. So
wow,
I mentioned that.
They are so
they don't even know him.
Misguided.
They don't know him.
I've been noticing that they've been having. I get in my email now. I get these Rite Aid blowout specials that they do now.
I think they're just specially for you.
So they're just coming to me. That's what it is. That's awesome. Yeah, they are wonderful over there, by the way.
Yes.
All right, so here we go. You're just a few days away, Marc, and Tuesday is the day, noon till 9, primary day, and you're running for re-election.
Yes, I am. There are many things I've been working on that I want to see to a conclusion, and we are fighting very hard to be able to continue to do that. I think there's my opponent has a little bit of a misunderstanding about what an assembly person's role is. Our primary function, or one of our primary functions, of course, obviously we have our obligations in Albany doing the budget and for session and passing legislation, but a very important element of what we do is constituent service, and we work day in and day out on that, helping people with tax problems, with legal. Well, we don't do legal problems, but maybe sorting out some legal issues for them. The list goes on, and you know those don't get big headlines in the newspaper. So he's under the misconception that nothing is being done out of that office, and that's as far from the truth as you can get. We're there every day. I'm a full-time legislator. Some are, some aren't, and believe me, I have a great staff. We get the job done. And that's what we focus on is constituent service.
Talk about the, if you could, the issue of this pay raise for legislators.
There was apparently some newspaper articles. There's been a commission created, and it's kind of interesting because the commission was designed to study the salaries of legislators and the judiciary. Many people have the idea that there's some big pay raise that's going to be a part of this, that's going to be recommended by this committee. There may be some recommendation that comes, but I've said very frankly, I couldn't support any proposal for a pay increase with the current economic conditions upstate. So we'll see what happens with that. But more to the point, to zero in, this commission is supposed to look at the whole structure of how the legislature is put together. We are officially part-time people. As I said, I consider myself to be a full-time legislator, but this means as being designated as part-time legislators, you can go to Albany for the first 6 months and then go back, if you're a lawyer, go back to working at your law firm, if you're a real estate agent or whatever. So you essentially can do two jobs. And where that comes into play, and I hate keeping piling on, but look at the case of Sheldon Silver, arguably the Speaker of the Assembly, one of the most powerful and influential people in Albany, was a trial lawyer. I don't think there's any coincidence that New York State's litigious environment is the way it is. We have the most difficult laws in the state. And that's part of what our economic development problem is. A lot of people are leery of all the litigation and things that go on in New York State. Additionally, he's a lawyer. The firm he works for, how good is it for them to have the guy that's behind making the laws be on their staff to be there and help them interpret the laws?
Right.
That's great for their firm. And thirdly, the trial lawyers are one of the greatest contributors to Albany. They're always at the top. So that's a classic case of where, the two-job issue comes into play. So this goes beyond a pay increase. It's about the basic structure of the legislature and how our job is perceived. And in that respect, I think it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Ultimately, one of the possibilities is put a cap on how much outside income you can earn. There are a lot of things that could come out of this, but
so you think you would not vote for a raise, but you feel that the actual commission might be a good thing, especially in light of what's happened with Skelos and and Silver.
What happens is these people get in these positions of power and influence, and they begin to profit from them personally, and that's where everybody seems to go off the tracks in Albany.
All right. What are the other big issues right now? I know we talk about constituent services, and that's a big part of being an assemblyman.
Yes.
But the key issues, obviously, the SAFE Act is something that has got to be on the minds of people when you're going door to door.
Well, it certainly is, and I think the SAFE Act, which I am vehemently opposed to, and am on a number of bills to repeal, is kind of an indication of the way things are going here in New York State. What was kind of a drift to the left is becoming a headlong rush to the left, and I think we need to address that in New York State. I think when you talk about jobs, when you talk about economic development, you get back again. We're an overregulated state. We're an overtaxed state. You were talking earlier about Remington Arms. I think one of the best things we can do to encourage a company like that to stay and flourish in New York State and Herkimer County is to straighten out our tax situation in New York State and cut back on some of these regulations that they have to deal with. So these issues all reach in a variety of different directions.
Okay, two more questions. Andrew.
All right, Assemblyman Butler, one of your other passions is the Hinckley Reservoir. Have you been pleased with some of the progress there, or what's the latest on that?
Well, the latest is the Water Authority has announced they're going to put in a larger pipe, which will permit them to withdraw more water from Hinckley. Unfortunately, you may recall last year there was they put in a request of the DEC to take additional water up to 32 million gallons a day, and the DEC granted that. So I don't think there's much we can do to oppose that, but I continue to watch that issue. I've talked to scientists, hydrologists, people who understand these things, and we remain convinced that the capacity of Hinckley, there will become a point where it is just overtaxed, and it's going to create some serious problems there and on the West Canada Creek.
And Manaski.
And Assemblyman, your opponent, I believe, received the endorsement. You mentioned Remington of the Remington Union. Is that the case, and were you surprised by that?
I was surprised. I've done a number of things to help Remington. I've stood up for them on the floor of the legislature. I've gone through some of the things that I've done. In 2000, I got Remington Arms a $500,000 grant. That's unheard of for a member of the minority. I've helped them out in a variety of ways. I don't know how these endorsements were determined, but we move on. It's puzzling me, but we move on from here.
All right, Assemblyman Marc Butler. This has been a anytime you're in the midst of a campaign, it's a challenge, and it all comes down to one day. Well, two kind of, but in this case, one day on Tuesday, noon till 9. It's primary day, and we appreciate your time for coming on this morning.
All right. Thanks very much.
Right.
Take care.
I do want to just one quick thing on this whole thing. I have to make this disclosure. The reason I make the disclosure is because Manaski makes me. And I just want you to understand that when it's said that, well, $18,000 was paid to your company, the commissions that are made, it's a commission basis. So when $18,000 comes in, it's then paid for advertising out to TV stations, and the commission generally is.
Well, I don't think you even have to.
But I do want to say you make about 6% off, which is basically a service fee. So I'm not trying to. I don't want to over defend here. But at the end of the day, for me and my family, this is what I do. It's what I did before I came to the radio station. I was very clear and upfront when I came here that I do television commercials and radio commercials, and I need the opportunity to be able to continue to do that because it's a major part of our me being able to provide for my family. And if it was a game stopper here, it would have been if I couldn't do that. So we go to great lengths to be fair, and that's the only thing that I would. There should be no concentration on where the whole thing should be about being fair. And I work so hard to be able to walk away and say that. And for instance, Butler's opponent, Vincent, was on just the other day. It's very, very important to me that I walk away and he smiles and says, "Hey, you've been nothing but fair, and thank you very much." Maria Kelso as well would be someone that's going against Brian Miller, who I'm doing work for. We've had nothing but positive interviews with her, and I would never be unfair. And by the way, if I was, you'd be right there to step in and stop it from happening. I really try to be nothing but fair in these races, despite that. It is unfortunate that I have to do it, but you got to pay the bills. It's what it is.